And how you almost got in a fist fight at the intermodals?
That's right. Yeah, NAG startup was rough. Yeah, I vaguely remember that, Jason. But yeah, we're trying to figure out intermodal. Can we actually do it out of NAG? And we were in some small little yard, and there's like 15 truckers trying to pick up empty containers, and it's just chaos, right? Like when we work here, things work structurally well, right? But when you're out in the real world, it's just like sometimes it's chaos, right? And literally, I couldn't take it, right? Because everybody's standing around, and there's like one person in the back, and he's not paying attention to all of them. So I finally just said, well, I'm going to just show him how to run this place. So I walked in there and gave him a piece of my mind, and to get out of there, we almost had to fight my way out of it. Yeah. And I quickly said, intermodal will never work.
I remember when you came back, it was like, yeah, Jason, we should not do intermodal ever. But it was an interesting time for NAG, and I do appreciate all the time we spent together, including all the times in the vehicles, because that was for a while there we were operating on our own cars, dealing with NAG, until we got in our trailers with no water, no bathrooms, and then we did that for a long time. But I remember many days, Kirk and I and a couple others probably in this room sitting out there, Alex, a couple of us sitting out there trying to figure out how to make the place go. And I remember you always putting on the vest and saying, hey, I'm gonna get in one of these trucks and go somewhere. And I said, okay, but check back in when you get back.
Somehow Jose's doing 5 a day and everybody else is doing 1. So you gotta get in the truck with Jose and figure out how he gets it done, right? Yeah, no, that was probably the toughest, but the experience I learned the most, right? How to do that better the next time, right?
Thank you, Kirk.
Yeah.
Really appreciate the time that we have spent together, although it's been a short time, and colorful stories I've missed. As part of your previous I mean, one of the greatest things about having this group like this and talk about some of the accomplishments and stories is really, I mean, every time you come for a retirement party, you look at the person standing in front of you, you don't see that person as who Kirk is looking right now, but a 22-year-old who started the company. That's the memory that we all cherish, and we think of ourselves as the same. It's just that we've grown and we've gotten some experiences, and it's beautiful to see and hear all these colorful stories. Don't repeat some of them, but really appreciate your leadership in the last year or so, Kirk. And I mean, this was probably one of the toughest times that we have ever had in the history of supply chain. Although others in the room would correct me that they have seen worse off, but at least the time that I have been, this is probably the most challenging. And one thing I really enjoyed working with you is you're always looking for some clarity for your team and keep it simple for your team, while we try to demand sun, moon, and the whole earth over the period of time. You were very particular about how to keep it sizable for your team so that it can be practically executed. So really appreciate that clarity that you've provided for your team. I wish the circumstances of the whole exports weren't as tough for you to go through this whole year, but wish you the best with your retirement, and I hope you take the time to unwind and do things that you've always wanted to but never got a chance to do it. So enjoy a healthy retirement. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, appreciate it.
All right, anybody else last words? I'm going to say a few words and leave it to Kirk.
One last thing, Kirk, if there's valuable wisdom in there, I'd like to know more about the 5 F's.
About what?
I'll let you think about that. So just a couple of words. So it's been an honor and a pleasure to work with you and MGB. Kirk, he mentioned NAG, went through NAG. Before NAG, we worked a little bit off and on together. Kirk and I started about the same time. I was a little bit before Kirk, but not much. We actually had, it seems like, I don't know, were you in Baytown in those early years too, or just Baton Rouge? Somehow you hung out with some of us in the Baytown
I was
crew.
in the Baytown tin plant for about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. And so when we were young and we had, McDonald was in Baytown at that time too, so there's some stories there. You've already heard more than you need to hear about McDonald. But it really has been a pleasure. There's 2 things that I see in Kirk that I really admire, and I think all of us can kind of take to heart. Number one is, and there's a good and bad side to this, is Kirk has more ownership and passion about whatever he is responsible for doing, and that's the people on his team, that is the business that he's running, it's the project that he's trying to start up. Man, he owns that. And I think because of that, one of his legacies is GCTV. And you put your heart and soul into that thing, and it was just a tremendous success on every level. And not the only reason, but one of the biggest reasons I think was Kirk's ownership and commitment. I mean, he would bring, he would, and it was stressful for Kirk at times. I mean, he and I had conversations. It was scary sitting across the table from him a couple of times. Sometimes I said things in a way I didn't mean, and Kirk pushed back a little bit. Like, whoa, wait a minute, that's not what I meant. But we went through it together. And but Kirk could get a room of like 50 people, of Emmett people and third-party people, and get all those people together. And it was areas that he wasn't an expert in, and he admittedly wasn't an expert, but masterfully he could get through those workshops. He could learn what we needed to do. He could figure out these are the priorities, guys, that are going to make us successful, and it all worked out. And so that ownership and passion, and for people, we heard stories from some of the folks that have worked for Kirk. You guys may think I'm crazy, but I actually like performance assessment. There's 2 pieces to performance assessment. There's the bad part where we got to put people in performance assessment categories. That's not fun, okay? Let's admit that. That is not fun. The fun part of performance assessment is collaborating with someone around what are all the excellent contributions you've made, what's the feedback that we get from people, which is overwhelmingly positive, and seeing those stories and those comments, it's a true pleasure. And then collaborating on how we can try to improve together. And I tell you, every time Kirk and I did that, I just loved it, because the feedback, the collaboration that we did it's one of, for me, the pleasures of being a supervisor, is being able to do that. And so that was a lot of fun. And the stories I could share from others go to that passion and that ownership that he had. The second thing, and this tees into one, Lisa Vanderlaan gave feedback for him one time, and I'll share it with you guys because it's really good. But she said, Kirk will tell you how it is, what it is, how it is. It doesn't matter if it's good, bad, or indifferent. It doesn't matter if you're the CEO or the technician in the plant. He is going to tell you how it is. And we need people like Kirk to do that. And I appreciate that for that piece. And I would tell you that you just need to be careful with your next boss in your next phase of your life. Maybe sometimes you can ease off a little bit on that transparency.
Yeah, that is true. I am walking into a world I haven't had to experience that every day.